Word on my computer. And we will give it one more minute, but I am so excited that you guys are here to talk about burnout because I'm burned out. So I need help, y'all.
Excited to be here.
No, we're very
Great
excited.
way to start what the reasons are. What are the reasons for burnout?
Michael, you're right. Everybody's burned out at some point. For sure. Okay. So we'll give it another second because it's 3 o'clock on the dot, and a lot of people who registered are realtors, so I think they operate on realtor time, not actual clock time, as we well know, the industry. But while we're waiting, can you guys introduce yourselves? So I'm going to start with Mr. Greg Flanagan, just because you're at the top corner of my screen.
There you go, top corner. Greg Flanagan, Charleston, South Carolina, 17 years as a real estate agent. Been a single agent, team leader, role of a team lead on a team, coach. Burnout's real. It's here. Lots of reasons, lots of ways to combat it, and we can go from there.
I love it. Mr. Rick Killer, who are you and where are you from?
Yeah, I'm from Pennsylvania, all right on the border around Gettysburg there, historic Gettysburg. So now I'm husband, father of 2. I'm a basketball coach, run a program, been in real estate for 12 years, training, coaching, been team leader at Keller Williams, rainmaker of my own team, recruiter. What else do I do? I mean, investor. We could go on and on, but no, I'm excited. It's gonna be fun.
Love it. Daria.
Yeah, so I'm Daria, originally from New Jersey, live right now in the Raleigh, North Carolina area. Mom, wife, dog mom, been in real estate about 12 years now, played a lot of roles as well. Started out on the admin ops side, built up teams, switched over to the sales side, was assistant team leader, now the sales director. So yeah, just, and baseball enthusiast.
Baseball.
I love that. Thank you. And Mr. Ryan.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Ryan Guillen. I am a team leader. I've been in real estate for 17 years as well. I am from the Saginaw, Michigan area, which is about an hour and a half north of Detroit. I had the awesome privilege of serving in a lot of different leadership capacities within the industry over the last 17 years, more so recently focused on growth, recruiting, and coaching and speaking as well, as I am certified in several different capacities within the coaching world. And so I'm excited to be here this afternoon with everybody and discuss a very, very much needed topic.
I love that. Thank you guys so much. So for those of you that are joining us on Zoom, feel free to drop any questions or thoughts you have in the chat. The way this works is our coaches are going to talk about and mastermind around a topic. So as you may have noticed, this one is focused on burnout and how to overcome it, how to work through it, mindset, activities, all of that. So we are going to let them take the floor, but we definitely want to leave space to answer questions or share resources at the end of this as well. So I'm going to let you guys take it away.
Wonderful.
Awesome.
Go ahead, Darius, start us off.
So who's burnt out?
Yeah.
I feel like I'm cheating on this conversation because I literally just got back from a vacation last week, and it was definitely much needed. Had an ability to turn off my phone, my notifications, which was huge, just not a ping, ping, ping every couple of minutes, and just really focus on family time and things like that. One thing I've noticed when I'm overwhelmed or feeling burnt out is that I need something on the calendar to look forward to. And it's usually a vacation or a couple of days away that I can just totally, shut off a little bit.
Cool. Yes,
Well,
what's the reason for burnout? What were you burnt out from?
I was thinking about this today, and I think the number one, I burn myself out, right? It's the expectations I put on myself, produce more, make more, do more, be more, and just not wanting to relent from that. I'm naturally driven. I don't like hearing no as an answer. If you tell me no, I'm definitely going to do it. I'm just gonna figure out how to do it, right? But realizing that there's only so much bandwidth that I have and there's only so much time. And I was just talking to my husband driving back to my home office and telling him, like, I feel like I'm a good time management person. I use my time very effectively, but I'm realizing I don't always have enough time. And I think that's what burns me out.
Cool. Anybody else?
Well, I think it's interesting to talk about like what exactly is burnout. You know, what does that look like? Because for different people, it's different things. You know, and burnout, you know, I can talk about it from a perspective of like, I deal with depression and struggle with that side of things. And so a lot of the symptoms of depression are very similar to the symptoms of burnout. And so like, if you're someone that does struggle with depression or even just a couple dips here and there, like we all do, like just realizing, are you depressed or are you just burnt out? You know, or did the depression come from being burnout, and what is the burnout deriving from? And so I think that's an interesting kind of place to start. Like when you guys, you know, ladies, when we talk about burnout, what does that actually mean? What does that feel like? What does that look like?
Can I just follow up on that, Rick?
Mhm.
Because I don't experience personally, but I have a team member that does. And I want to know what are your successes? How do you overcome that feeling or actually know the difference between the burnout or the depression? Is there a line?
Well, you know, I think, you know, I'm not talking specifically about like super deep depression where you can't get out of bed,
I get
but
it.
you know, it's when you deal with it on a daily, weekly basis, it's just part of life. So you do the things that help you kind of manage that, whether it's exercise, eating right, you know, staying healthy, getting enough sleep, staying positive, surrounding yourself with the right people. Like, and when you're constantly on the go and you have so many different irons in the fire, like that's just a normal part of your life. So for me, burnout will sneak up on me because it feels just like kind of a normal, maybe down day. And so some of the indicators for me is when I realize I'm really getting cynical and my jokes are getting really dark. And the people that I love to be around or the things that really bring me joy or bring me energy I start to feel like, oh crap, I do not want to be around that person, or I do not want to be in this situation. And that's when I've learned to identify and go, whoa, I think this is more than just my daily normal part of life. I think there's something extra here.
Rick, if you don't mind, I'd love to piggyback off of that real quick, because I think you said something extremely powerful that I just want to highlight. You know, when you asked the question, Greg, about the identification factors, I think burnout has a way of clothing itself in many different forms. And to everybody, it's projected and portrayed a little bit differently. For me, one of the biggest indications when I've ever hit burnout has been a notice of the things that I was passionate, loved, enjoyed, were no longer there. And in fact, then became more of a duty-filled burden. And I noticed when that came out of view, and like you had just mentioned a few seconds ago, when you start to crack jokes and say certain things and don't want to be around people that for normal reasons you would totally maybe enjoy or be okay being around, and that I kind of had that same indication that like, okay, well, wait a minute, there's been a loss of something along the way, because what used to be okay in the same exact form, in the same exact way, with the same exact stuff is no longer okay. And I think to answer one of the biggest questions that kind of resolves in that of, once we've identified that burnout is taking place, what are some of those causes and stuff like that, which was one of the first questions that I'd like to also add to, is inefficiencies. Inefficiencies produce a breakdown of a certain format that allow us to operate in a way that is more strenuous than systematic. And I think sometimes unconsciously, subconsciously to us, whether that's in life or our businesses, that tends to bring, you know, kind of a rougher journey to trudge down. I mean, efficient by definition is working in a competent way to avoid wasteful use of resources. And so, you know, it's about the right things in the right place and for the right time. And I think if any one of those three elements kind of get off kilter in our businesses and our life, you know, it can bring a form of burnout without us noticing it until the indication that we're not okay actually sets in. So I thank you, Rick, for, you know, provoking that thought, because for me, that would be one of the biggest indications that I've experienced. Again, like I said, is what was okay no longer is.
Mhm.
I think I find it, I get into that. And gosh, Ryan, you brought up a good one, was about losing the passion. All of a sudden, what you love to do here, for me, becomes a chore. I kind of shut down and I get burnt out, and I think it might become a lack of control in my part or a lack of time management. It just overwhelms me to the point where I go, I've got to take a minute and go to the beach, and hang out on the sand for a while. Cool. Anything else on the reasons for it, or how do we identify it?
Well, I think, we're talking about, 4 people that we do a lot of different things. I mean, even somebody that's, say they're a full-time real estate agent, that's all they're doing. Of course, that's not all they're doing. They may have a family, they may, have a side gig or, other relationships, but, I like to think back to the last couple of years where super heavy buyer market, COVID was crazy, right? And I know there was a lot of people that I believe were burnt out. You show 50 houses in a week and you write 50 offers and you get 0 deals done.
Yeah.
So I think, since I know some of the folks here are or have been in the boat, that would be something maybe to talk about or share.
Yeah, definitely workload can be the burnout, right? Or the lack of the transaction moving forward, like you said, all this work and then amounts to nothing, where you've got to start over again with that client, can definitely lead to burnout. But also, I think parallel right now, the agents I'm working with, they're having to double, triple, quadruple their effort to find clients now, right? So it's the same kind of effort, just a different, vehicle here, where they're like, man, I'm calling 4 hours, 5 hours, and I'm not getting anywhere. Like, now I'm getting nervous, and that's going to cause burnout also, because they're not seeing the result. So we've been trying to kind of shift their mindset a little bit about the positive is that you got through the lead gen, right? The client or the prospect would be the bonus on top, but let's reward just doing the actual lead generation too, which is hard. I mean, if they're not seeing the result, that can lead to burnout.
I've experienced the same thing with our team, and one of the things that works for us is we get them out. I put them in my truck. I can fit 6 of them. Put them in my truck. Go to a neighborhood. We go knocking doors. It serves 2 purposes: gets their blood flowing, gets them talking to real people, so that they're actually knocking on doors and seeing people. That's what works for us right now, because you're right. They do. They spend 2 or 3 hours on the phone, and yeah, they'll get a couple of hits here and there, but it leads to, I don't want to do this anymore. So
Yeah.
that's a great way to do it. Sure. Cool.
I'd like to, if I just want to kind of support something that was mentioned just a few seconds ago, as it pertains to like the reasons. I think one of the best teachers of experiences like this really are understanding what causes something. And then once you are aware of what it's being caused, and you know how to avoid those particular type of items. And so, I mentioned inefficiencies just a few minutes ago. We mentioned workload. One of the things, Greg, that you kind of mentioned, I affectionately call violation of values. One of the biggest things.
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the biggest things in here, I think, that causes burnout, especially for those that are connected to this type of industry, is directly connected to what Rick and Daria was just mentioning, and that essentially, like if we were to break it down to the fundamentals of what's going on in the situation, burnout really can be caused by a failure to change when needed. The market is changing almost every single day. And if you're in high volatile locations, I mean, it's amplified, right? We've got in our market here, we've got deals and transactions that are getting back to competing with 10, 12 offers, but you go 2 hours south and they've got 20, 25. Everything is amplified based on markets. And so when we as professionals and overall in life don't make the needed changes when needed, then it easily opens the door for burnout, because now we're doing the wrong things at the wrong time. And so I think not having an adaptability or a fluidity is one of the biggest causes of burnout as well.
I think, Ryan, on top of that also is with boundaries. Because if you don't set your boundaries or whatever you're doing, and you just let everything leak into maybe downtime or family time, or, you know, when you're supposed to go do your workout to kind of just have your mental health time, then that's gonna also kind of what you're saying there, it's gonna lead to burnout, because you're not protecting your values, you're not protecting your boundaries, and that quickly will lead to burnout.
Mhm.
Are we teaching that to our people? I mean, I know I do. I teach at 7 o'clock, you shut your phone off, nothing happens. Everybody's in bed, everybody's gone. They'll handle it in the morning. I think that's an important thing, and agents, if they're listening, it's very important to understand that you have to have that family time, because that will cause you to just, what's the use of taking a call at 7 o'clock that you can't do anything about? It's gonna drive your anxiety levels. Yeah, 100%, Daria.
Yeah.
Cool.
I suspect as coaches, we're teaching that as people that have been in the business for a while, but you know, overall, if you look on Facebook if you've got a ton of realtor friends, like the culture is still, this is a 24/7 business. And the only way you're a good realtor and the only way you're a great business person is if you're on all the time. You know, you see those posts that say, I was at the office till 11, burning the
Mhm.
midnight oil. I do everything I can for my clients. I'm always here.
Well,
Yeah.
let's see if they're
You
here in
know.
17 years.
And, you know, I think, you know, what Kim's
That's what I'm
talking
good.
about in chat there, if you guys saw that, you know, she's got some clients that are taking downtime.
Mhm.
But part of, you know, I think both of you touched on it, and maybe I misunderstood, but I think the everything you said is right. But sometimes the part of that is like, what are your priorities? You know, for most people, you know, it goes God, family, business. And what happens is, you know, Daria, like you were talking about a little bit, is when it bleeds into it, or not even just bleeds into it, you're like so focused on, well, I've got to get this business now, that is now your priorities. If you really look at them, what we're taught to do, look at your schedule, find out what your priority is. It's business, then family, then whatever else is important. And that'll
Yeah.
create burnout real quick too.
Yeah,
Mhm.
just in the last 2 to 3 weeks, I've had 2 agents come to me in tears. And one instance was, you know, still again, like hungry for business, and they want to take everything they can get. And one agent had a promise with her daughter to go shopping for like a prom dress. And a call came in and, hey, can you show this house right now? I really want to go see it. You know, dropped the plans with her daughter, and then of course felt awful and came in the next day just sobbing, you know, and the talk, you've gotta protect that time. You tell them you're in an appointment, you're already booked, you will contact them tomorrow or offer another agent to maybe go show for you. You know, and then on the flip side, just this past weekend, an agent, you know, giving a client a hard stop. Hey, I have a hard stop on Saturday at 6 p.m. I have somewhere to be with my family. And then letting the client bulldoze that and work with them until about 7:30, 8 o'clock that night. And then coming in the office Monday, just hysterical. You know, I missed this, I missed that. My daughters are upset with me. You know, like you have, and I teach them, and you know, the way I feel like I teach it is I do it. And I say, here's how I do it. And when you contact me at this time, you're either not going to get a response, or you're going to get my little standard response. Hey, I see this, I'll talk to you in the morning. And that's what you need to do. But that's also an exercise, like you have to work at that. That doesn't come naturally to people because they don't want to disappoint. They want to be the on-call agent, the 24/7 agent, the everything to their client. But that will quickly burn you out. That's a hard muscle to exercise, that muscle of that boundary.
That right there, though, is the direct example of my inefficiency comment as one of the reasons of cause of burnout, right? Because in those moments, like if that was a client of ours, we could coach them through how to set up, you know, the showing agent models, or coach them through those type of things that would leverage that time in that space so that the deal still gets done, the client still gets served, things still move forward in terms of progression, accomplishments can be felt, but then it's not all falling on, you know, just that one individual to have to choose between their daughter or a deal, you know, which is unfair. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that all begins with an expectation. If you're gonna, the way I combat it is, I bring them through an expectation conversation with their client. And even my agents, they won't call me after 7 unless it's something, unless they're dying, they need me. They know that I'm not gonna bother him. He's gonna tell me what, you know, see you in the morning. But yeah, expectation, I think, is a big thing right there. That'll control a lot of the burnout. as far as family is concerned. I don't do business after 7 o'clock. We'll get back to you first thing in the morning. I think a lot of agents need to understand that.
Yeah.
What, Ryan, going back to your value mismatch, it was one of the things that I was thinking about earlier. I find it that when the agents are pushing against, and it can even go into lead generation, right? Like Darius said, if they're saying to me, I can't do this lead generation because I'm not comfortable on a telephone. What are we going to do with that agent? Is that a value mismatch, or is that a skill mismatch? I know it drives them into burnout because it's going against what they believe.
Yeah, I think for me, I would identify kind of that situation specifically, maybe as both. Like I mentioned, I affectionately call it violation of values. Like at some point, my values were violated, right? They were the big why, the vision, whatever you want to call it, has gotten out of sight. It's gotten a little off kilter. So now things are operating wobbly. It's like when your vehicle needs a tire rotation, or you've got two bald tires in the front and fine ones in the back, or you need an alignment because it's pulling a little bit to the right. People live life and they run businesses off balance like that because of those type of skill sets. So I think for me, every market, like I said, is a little bit different. Every value framework is a little bit different too. So if somebody's coming into a team or an organization or a company, and there are certain frameworks, almost of requirements for success that are proven and or maybe the most successful for that particular market. And if cold calling, FSBOs, expires, database, et cetera, is going to be one of those, then there's got to be a development of skill sets in that to maintain alignment with value. But I also feel that in the event that there is room for other options, is there something that can compensate for that? So for an example, a very good friend of mine, Greg, who many might know because he travels a lot with the Glover University coaching programs and stuff like that. He's got a massive team in Ohio, does $1 bajillion in production and never picks up the phone. Well, for him, his comfort level was not so much rooted in developing the skill set of prospecting in terms of calls. He rerouted and focused on exchanging that duty for different types of high-level marketing that caused his phone to ring as opposed to him ringing somebody else's phone. And it worked for him in that market. So, but that market and his company, that was also part of his values. So I think as long as if that is part of the values, it's definitely skill development. And if skill development isn't there, then it is violating the values. Yes, absolutely. But I also would challenge to identify that if that's not something that is supported by the current framework of values already, is there another option for that level of success, if that makes sense?
Mm-hmm.
I think it does. It's a quick moving conversation, folks. I'm already halfway through, it's like, how do you fix the burnout? I mean, we heard the depression side, we heard the agent side. What do we do to help them move forward? Or what can they do to help themselves?
Mm-hmm.
We all know what we need to do. What can we do to help they can help themselves to move forward from any one of the items we spoke about?
Well, let's get Kim in.
Come on in, Kim.
Okay, so I'm just gonna, I don't know if this is just for the ladies. One of you were like, well, I don't know, Daria, when you're a woman. I don't know. I thought I heard that comment before.
Bring it, let's go.
So here's what I've discovered, especially with working entrepreneurial women, is they think they need to be the end all be all for everything and don't know how to ask for help in the home front, at the home front, right? And like, we don't need to do everything. Like, ladies, who cares what your kids are wearing if your husband's dressed them, right? Like, I was talking to a coaching client. She's like, well, I'm getting ready to go on vacation and I'm prepping the meals and I'm getting the outfits out. And I'm like, why are you doing that? Like, who cares? So I don't know, men, do you do that before you leave for vacation?
So let me ask this, Kim, to take that a little bit further, okay? What do you do if you deal with a female, for an example, who is like wired to thrive off of that? And the reason I'm asking is because I got a really good friend who, like during Christmas, she is an event planner by nature. That's her industry. She's in the hospitality industry, but her house operates like her business. So Christmas comes, okay? She has a theme that's already planned 12 months in advance on what the family theme is going to be for Christmas,
Wow.
so that the house decorations are in accordance with the theme. And then all the way down to the wrapping paper of the presents that are not only in accordance with the theme, but are then categorized based on child, age group, and type of toy. Or now that her children are a little bit older, you know, type of whatever present that is. So when I hear stuff like that, like I automatically say I'm burnt out just by listening to the story, right? Like
Well,
couldn't-
I automatically say I'm hiring her because I believe in
Yeah.
leverage. So I get, you know, does it fill her joy, right? Because we all are about like, what can we do that gives us energy, baking or whatever. It doesn't really matter what it is. And it's weighing, right? It's weighing the stress against the joy, against your purpose. Like, okay, that's great. Is that really going to fill your joy? And if it does, then where do we over here need to get you some leverage so you have that time to pour into that?
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I do feel what you're saying though, Kim, sometimes. I feel like I do need to do it all. And it might be on me. My husband does a lot. He does pull his weight, but when I was stepping back into full-time work, like serious in office, not necessarily from home, there was a conversation. It was a come to the table. Let's just talk about what this looks like for our family. Here's all the things that I do. And now here's what I can do if I take this job on. So all of this over here, we either need to split it, leverage it out, hire it out, have the kids chip in now that they're older in their teens. But you know, if we want this to work with me going back to work and hit our goals, you know, that we have financially, then what are we going to do with this chunk here? And since we've had that conversation before that, it was all on me and it was a lot because you're juggling everything that. But since we've had that conversation, he realizes, you know, all the things that we were doing to keep everything just running smoothly. He's taking on a lot of that. And we do give it a lot to the kids. And here's what I think of with my kids, you know, for instance, like, let me just say, if I ask my son to mow the lawn, you know, versus maybe myself or my husband or even a landscaper doing it, right? This is part of his chores now, his responsibility of chipping into the house to take it off a bus. It may not be perfect, right? He might have some mohawks down the strips, or, you know, he might edge a little bit too much into the flower bed. But one, is it better than what I could have done with the time I might have had to do it? Yeah. Did it free me and my husband up to maybe do something else? And did it keep money in our pocket to put into something else that we're investing in? So when I try to take off some of the hats and give them away, those are some things I have to think about. Like, is my time best spent here or should I do it somewhere else, even though the product or the result might not be exactly how I would have done it? Does that make sense?
Sure.
Totally. And you guys,
Yeah.
now the floor is yours because I'm heading off. But I just had to say my piece because I was talking to this one of my clients today. It's like running a business. Everything that you just said, Daria, is exactly what we are all coached to and what we talk to our clients about. It's about communication, running a household, having a life and balancing all that. It's all the same conversation.
Yeah.
So I love it. All right. You guys are amazing.
Thanks, Kim.
Thanks, Kim.
Thanks, Kim.
I just have to call out Chris Orsini for calling me out. That hurt a little bit. Just saying. But it's Ryan, I feel like that person and I need to be best friends. I hope you know that. So.
She would make a killer operations person, I'm just saying.
Well, okay, so let me ask y'all this question, because that whole conversation, the reason I dumped a photo of my child in there is that's what he was dressed with this morning, because my husband took him to school instead of me, because I finally was like, honey, I'm sacrificing myself to get up every morning and dress our child and then take him to school before I work. And I said, I need help. And so like what you were saying, Daria, like, I mean, it hits home hard, because I was like, okay, I'm going to have to give this up I'm not going to worry about his clothes. I'm not going to worry about his breakfast. I'm going to let my husband do it so I can go work out a couple days a week.
Yeah.
And
And
like,
listen, Jess, sometimes they're gonna have ice cream and cookies for breakfast.
I
right?
know.
And you just have to let it go.
Exactly. Well, there's proof in the pudding that I travel once a month and I come home and my child's still alive as well. But, I'm like, you know what? They made it 3 days, so I can let it go for a morning.
Yeah.
But no, what I wanted to ask was, are you guys seeing a difference in burnout in your world with different types of people? So, we use rocket fuel as an example to weigh integrators versus visionaries. Do you find that when you're talking to people, you feel like burnout happens more frequently with one or the other, or is it just a general thing?
I think everybody experiences at a different level and in different positions of what they're at, where they're at in their life, whether you're an integrator, a visionary, the guy who sweeps the street or the guy who's cutting somebody's brain open, right? Everybody's into a burnout period of their life. And it has to do with everything we discussed so far. I think in the real estate field, because that's truly where we're at right now. I think everybody's in that field. I think it comes down to the overworking, the lack of control of people around their ceremonies, the lack of support. Kim brought up a good point about support, right? Prioritizing and support, self-care, right? What are you doing for self-care?
Mhm.
Feel yourself going down into this hole. Me, I will go to the beach. I will go somewhere else and take care of that just to get a fresh mind. It happened this morning, folks, right? Where are you going? What are you doing? And I think self-care is real important. And if anybody's got any tricks or suggestions, happy to listen.
No, I love that. So you go to the beach. What else do you guys do for self-care that maybe is not as conventional as I'm going to book a spa day?
That's good too. If
Yeah.
that takes you away, sure. That's good too.
Something that I do is go to a salt cave. So basically you're in a room with all this salt and there's good positive ions coming onto you. But the best part is that you cannot bring your phone in there. So that is a 50-minute, period of the month. I go once a month and where I just can't be accessed. And it's huge. Self-care also, Greg, like, visiting a chiropractor or massage therapist once a
Sure.
month. We also like to go to the beach, but I think it's finding what you love that you can zone out and kind of forget about all the rest going on and just be in your head for yourself and not solving problems and not figuring out what's tomorrow's workday look like, or, which agent do I need to call back real quick. It's just kind of getting in your space, and wherever that is, then that's where it is.
I think you brought up a good point about the electronics, because that will suck you down in that black hole so quick. And it's not that you're looking for Facebook or Instagram, whatever you're looking at in that, boom, it just sucks you down. Next thing you know, you look up, you go, the hell did I just do for 6 hours?
Mhm.
So I think that's a good one. Put the phone away for a day. Nobody dies in real estate. Nobody
Like,
dies.
I think there's a different type of person out there. I've coached a lot of people that can't do vacation. Like, they go on vacation, they start to feel guilty after a couple days, if they're not doing something. And I think for those people, it's different. I act like I'm not one of them. But so for what seems to work for them is they still have to do a little bit of work. Like, one of the questions I ask is like, how many hours do you have to work in the morning before you feel good and you can enjoy the rest of the day? And for some of them, it's 1 or 2. For some of them, it's 5. But that's something that has been beneficial. And I think the rocket fuel question is really interesting. Like, I've been thinking about that the whole time. I'm not even sure I heard much else, because the integrators, I think, are more task oriented, right? So I think there's a level of stress there that they must feel. Whereas when you're more of a visionary, like, some of the things that I enjoy doing, and thankfully I have a VA that calls me out and she sees me every day and she can tell when I'm getting close to burnout. And she mentioned one time, she's like, you'll just cancel everything in a day and just stop. Like, she's seen that habit But I can't go on vacation. You know, I'm more stressed when I'm on vacation. But you know, I'll put on my my Bose sunglasses and I'll sit in the hot tub for 20 minutes and listen to music and nobody can bother me and I'm in my own zone, but I'm still thinking. Like I'm not getting away from it necessarily, but that's a great relaxing thing where I can just it's weird because everybody else goes, oh, you got to get away from it, you got to turn it off. Well, I'm better when I can just be at peace and still think and still be tackling those problems or still think about, you know, what offense and defense are we running this year? What am I doing with this team? You know, how can I help this coaching client? You know, let me really dig into what is their real issue, stress, values, you know, procedure. So, you know, and that's a different perspective, of course. I know I'm a little bit weird.
No, Rick, just curious, do you feel like that's an internal drive from you where you know, like you say, you can relax in the hot tub, but you still are thinking through all of your stuff? Or do you feel like that's a product of like normalizing burnout in our culture, right? I'm working all day, or I'm working this, or I'm overtime, you see it all the time on social media, just the constant go, 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 where we do, like you said, people feel guilty for going on vacation and actually like, you know, checking out, like legit checking out. People feel guilty.
Yeah, I think, I mean, I can only speak for myself, really. I can enjoy vacation for like a day. And that's it. Like the next day I get up and I'm like, I have to do something because if I sit around all day, then I'm a loser. And I'm sure it's internal. I'm sure it has to do with a little bit of my natural decline into depression, and that's part of probably how I battle that is that I make sure I'm doing something and I'm staying busy. But for others that I've talked to that are similar to me, it is the drive for a lot of them. Like if they have goals, they have a vision, they have things they want to do, and if they're not working on it every day, they feel like they're not getting it done. That's why most of the time the question of how many hours do you have to work before you can relax is usually a good one, because they're not thinking about that.
Right.
I think that's a great question.
I love that question.
Does
Oh, go ahead.
just to follow up. And Rick, I was that person at your age. I found as my systems got better, my comfort level went down. I felt that I could walk away for X amount of days. And it took me 2 or 3 days before when I started my vacation, because it was always go, 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 go. It took me 2 or 3 to de-escalate. And then once I was de-escalated, probably, you know, if I was on a 2-week vacation, that would start creeping back in about day 11. You know, oh Jesus, I got to do this, and this. And I found that the more I relied on my system and my VAs and my assistants in house, the easier it got, to the point now where, hey, I can go to sleep real. Oh, you know, it's just not there. So I don't know if that's something we as coaches can share into our coachees. Just my thought.
Yeah. I think it's a powerful perspective, to be honest, because I feel, Rick, like I used to be like that. And to be honest, Greg, I wish I had your testimony of like, oh, I found better systems and then life got easier. I went a little bit opposite in the fact of like, I hate
80%, only 80%.
Right.
Not 100%. Nothing's ever going to be 100. 80%,
Right.
You're fine.
Right. Well, I hit a point of burnout because of just living like that for so long. I hit such a point of burnout that actually took a physical toll. And for me, my point of change where I was willing to let that level of whatever you want to call it go, was when I found myself like in the hospital surrounded by, you know, specialists that they flew in because they couldn't figure out certain things that I was going through, literally stress induced. That for me was a turning point. And from that moment forward, I don't know, something just kind of clicked in me mentally. And like now I can easily break away when I need to break away, I think, because I had that rock bottom kind of a moment. And so now I have, like, to answer, I guess, Jess's question too, like I kind of have a 3-tier process. I do an identification point of energy drainers, and I do a study of my energy givers, what is giving me energy and what is currently draining energy. So I know the energy drainers, I can shut that door. And then I have three main things specifically that I do that help me kind of like reset, replenish, avoid that burnout, allow me to be able to enjoy the moment with the phone away and not feeling bad about it or anxious about it. And to be honest, these three things are super simple and they're not like all the time. So I have to kind of test it. Golfing for me is one of them. I don't know why, because I'm not very good at it, but the fact that I can just like whack a ball, you know, like is therapeutic to me for some reason. Faith is a super huge part of my foundational everything. So my pastor, who is also like my mentor, like sometimes driving up to his house and just sit on the porch for a few minutes having a conversation is that thing. Otherwise, it's I'm on a kayak fishing. Like I love kayaks and I like fishing, but when you put them two things together, like I float into a whole nother world. Like I'm Aladdin on a floating kayak. It's insane. I don't know why.
You leave your phone home? When you go kayak?
I do. Yeah. Yeah. I didn't used to. I used to have a waterproof pouch that I would hang out with me in because I couldn't disconnect from it, you know,
Right.
but I do now. Yes.
Good strategy. Good strategy. Cool. Anybody else? What else we got? We got stress management. How about goal setting? I mean, as far as getting the burnout over, what do you do with, what's a better question?
Well, I was going to say you were stealing the question that I tried to ask earlier, which was kind of around all those things that you want to accomplish. Like I know Rick, especially, you were talking about all those things that you want to do, like you have a plan. Do you have any tool or system or way of processing and prioritizing those that you use on a daily or weekly basis? You know, I mean, a lot of people in the Keller Williams ecosystem have, you know, heard of like a 411, but do you have anything else? Or do you use that tool?
So I was team leader for 3 years. So of course I had to use those tools. But no, my problem has always been is you set the goal and then you're going for it. And what I found about myself is that my priorities, I call it my priority level by excitement level. So like I can be really excited about a goal in the beginning of the year and my 135 is here. And then maybe a quarter of the way through the year, something new pops up or I have a new business or I have some other idea and the priorities that I have by excitement level change throughout the month and throughout the year. And when what I recognized just probably last year was that my quickest burnout is when the excitement level changes, but I'm working really hard towards a goal where the priority has really dropped to the middle or the bottom, because I really want to be doing other things, but I've committed to that goal and to those priorities. And that's why, you know, I think, you know, I really just, I write it down every month or two. Especially if I start feeling a little tired or I'm getting a little annoyed with people or what, if I start to feel some signs, I'll just go back and say, okay, what am I really excited about right now? And it's always going to be family, you know, and then it's going to be whatever else it is. And I sometimes surprise myself as to what that looks like. And then I go, okay, well, if that's where I'm getting energy from, if that's what's exciting me, then I'm going to adjust these goals. Because other than spending time with my family, I don't really care that much of which of the 10 things that I'm doing, you know, is above the other and on my priority list.
I love that. What about the rest of you? Do you guys have any sort of system or place that you track your goals and priorities?
So in terms of goals and priorities, yes, I do use the GPS, the 135, those type of things. In terms of those for the purpose of like avoiding burnout, no. I think I would say I operate more off of a warning system. While those things help me stay focused, if for some reason I'm getting to that threshold of potential burnout, kind of like Rick was saying, like I start to notice certain things, like what would fuel me when I get up in the morning is almost becoming dreadful, or like I'm losing the joy of doing something. that I know I had a joy or a passion for doing. Once those type of feelings and thought patterns start to change, then I know I'm heading down a wrong direction, which maybe causes me then to recalibrate some of those tools and stuff like that. But I do use them to help to focus, but in terms of to ensure that we're avoiding burnout, I don't. I'm more of a warning system.
Yeah, similar. I'll tend to have a lot of anxiety when I'm starting to get overwhelmed or burnt out. I'll have hard time making decisions where normally if my mind was clear, I could be like very laser focused, yes or no, black or white. Second guessing, I guess, myself, or kind of going down a rabbit hole. Okay, if I decide this, then this might happen, but that might happen, then this might happen. Then all of a sudden, I've done this once with my husband. I kind of mapped out my thoughts and he was like, that is exhausting. Like, how do we even get through the day? And I'm like, this happens to me like 20 times a day. He's like, oh my God. He's like, no wonder why you're always tired. But I know like when that's happening, I'm approaching burnout like that. I need a mental break. And then it's usually sometimes physical. So I have autoimmune disease. And then if my stress level is maxing up, then I'm actually having physical like symptoms or flare-ups. And that's when it's an indicator of like, okay, you need to take a step back and find what it is that you can kind of take a breath and walk away from for a little bit. So.
That's cool. As coaches, how can we help the agent? What are 5 or 6 things that we can do to help an agent get through or avoid the burnout period? I wrote a couple down, and one of them is time management, and the other is accountability. I think those are 2 of the important things that, along with the stress management. But those are important things that I think a coach brings to a coachee, is helping him get through that. Anything else that we can?
I really like to know the personality type. I really like to know what their priorities are, and I just recently, based on my experience, started making them write down, what are you most excited about every day? Like when you look at your list of things that you have to do or that you want to do, and I always utilize the one thing. I love that book, and I think if someone hasn't read that and they don't have control of their calendar, that makes it really easy for me to kind of pinpoint if they're out of whack, and if they're not, where to put their focus on. And so that's something that I find is important.
That is important.
Yeah, I've learned, I coach a lot of new agents in the business and a lot of women, moms, multiple hats. That's really my forte, where they almost feel a lot of guilt, like we were talking about with Kim, right? And almost giving them the grace or learning for them how to give themselves grace or the permission to make another choice. Maybe, with 3 young kids under 10, real estate is not the right time for them right now, but you have other strengths that you could do. So just kind of helping them to self-discover sometimes, like it's okay if it's not working out right now. There's other times that you can come back to this and refocus there. That seems to be a lot of what I deal with my clients as well. Just helping them self-discover sometimes and giving grace, no matter what the situation is, that it's okay, to take a step back or to make another choice.
Cool. One of the things that's helped me over the years, about 4 or 5 years ago, anybody ever read The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer? It's given me a different way of looking at everything in the world, the metaphysical, whatever you want to call it. I'm not that smart, but what it does, it says, hey, your brain, as you drive down the road, and you drive down the same road every day, your brain is talking to you, and it's telling you, there's the red barn, there's about, as you walk down through this road. And we don't need to respond to that anymore. And I think that keeps me in a real good peace, where all that's just crap coming in and I'm not responding to it or reacting to it. And I think that keeps me out of burnout more than anything. What you say to me doesn't really affect my life today. if that deal didn't go through today, what am I gonna do about it? I can't be upset about it. If nobody answered the phone today after 3 hours of calling, there's nothing I can do about it.
Mhm.
It's a good book. It's The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer. Small book, little thing.
It's kind of like control the controllables, right?
Yeah, it's exactly controllable. What do I care? What do I really care about that? Or him or her or whatever else is going on. So, cool.
I love this conversation and thank you for the book recommendation. I threw that in the chat and I'll make sure that I put that in the replay email as well. So I want to respect everybody's time and just again say thank you coaches so much for playing all in, and see if anybody had any questions or comments that they hadn't thrown in the chat yet before we wrap this up. You've got clapping from Miss Brandy. We really appreciate you guys. If anybody has anything they want to say, they're welcome to unmute now. And if not, we'll conclude this amazing conversation on burnout or how to avoid it.
Good deal. I appreciate everybody being here. I enjoyed it.
I do too. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, very good.
Yep, that was
Yes.
fun.
Thank you, coaches, so much. I really, like I said, appreciate you guys. And we will wrap this up and get the replay out so that you can share it out with the people who didn't have the time, maybe because they were burned out, to sit and listen right now. So
Enjoy.
bye everyone. Have a good
Thanks
night.
so much,
Thanks,
Jess.
everybody.
See ya.